Hello folks, this is Wayward Eko. The Fun Pimps just finished another 2-hour plus dev stream and I'm going to break it down for y'all. The developer showed off a ton of new buildings and then also talked in depth on the new block system. The Fun Pimps lead level designer Eric gave us a good walkthrough on how they came up with the concept of laying out the cities. What you're seeing here is a prototyping exercise that the level designers all did jointly, where each of them were building throughout the city to feel how everything came together. Here's Eric's comments on the process.
And the great thing about this process was we would start with some building shapes and concepts, and we looked at a lot of reference of towns and cities, and we're trying to really capture the vibe.
So with that, let's start walking through some of the new POIs, starting with Eric's. The first POI that they showed was an older one that they reworked.
We have an update to the apartments that you guys may remember if you've played this before, and tried to preserve as much as I could of what was good about I believe it was the A17 version.
Lathan did a quick playtest of the POI just to show us how lethal it could be starting off. Here's Eric's comments.
One of the things I wanted to do with this parking garage is kind of communicate to players early that, if you try to just walk in here at a lower level or by yourself, you're going to find out that it's pretty difficult.
The other nice addition is that we got to see our first sneak peek at what some of the new sewers are going to look like. These are some of the updates for A20 that I'm really excited about because I think it's going to give the world a more dynamic and realistic feel. The sewers here are just one instance of adding another layer of depth. They're also going to have some cave POIs that I saw as they were going through as well. The next POI they showed was Remnant Downtown Filler number 2. Now this is interesting. So the concept of remnants are that these are not questable POIs. The devs had several ideas behind these, one of which was just to give players a break from the constant questing and grind. Additionally, Eric noted,
kind of the concept for this remnant was with the idea that, players sometimes take over these abandoned buildings as bases.
So as we see some of the other remnant POIs, start thinking about how you might leverage these for your own base. The next 3 POIs were designed specifically to work with the new city tech.
Now, this is what's called a downtown filler. We just named it that way because they're size 25 by 25 to fit into the new random gen stuff and kind of piece together into the new cities and the city generation. And what we tried to do is really kind of cram, especially for districts like downtown, is like make it feel very tight and like multiple buildings kind of stacked together.
So you can see how this would make for a really amazing experience in the cities. I know that I saw as they were going through that the remnants and the fillers went up to 25, so that's a significant amount to give us some variety.
It's really fun to run around in cities now and kind of just lose yourself to the distraction of, oh, what's that building over there? Oh, what's that building over there? Oh, what's that POI over there?
I can see myself falling into that exact scenario that Eric just described. And in regards to the breadth of what we're getting for this, here's what Eric had to say just at looking at these last 3 POIs.
Keep in mind, this is all just one size category in one district.
So once you think about layering in the additional size categories and all the associated fillers with that, we're going to have quite a bit of content to work through. So those were all the POIs that Eric showed off. Next, we're going to pivot over and take a look at the POIs developed by Hernan. First one we're going to check out is a pretty substantial downtown building.
All right, this is one of the first bigger POIs I made a while ago now, standing by for A20. It's formerly a factory which was recycled into apartment buildings.
Hernan goes on to note that as he and the rest of the level developers are working on these POIs, they're constantly re-ingesting the new blocks that they're given so that they can further enhance the POIs. The next one is a warehouse that you would expect to see in the industrial districts.
It's made like in separate buildings, but of course all of them are connected.
Previously we saw some screenshots of the warehouses, but nothing like this. I'm very curious to see how these multi-building POIs function. I have to wonder if there is some type of subterranean connectivity between them, but I guess we'll find out once we get in them. The next one we have on the list is another one of the downtown fillers.
This is one of the fillers Eric was talking about. I made this one. It's a construction building next to a pizza place called Mama Pizza.
Lathan did another short run through this POI. I'm just going to call out some of the interesting things like the spiral staircase here. This is going to be a new block that we have access to. Be curious to see how the zombies navigate that. Looking through here, the fridge graphic looks updated. Everything just looks much sharper through here. So the last POI from Ernon, and I think the most gorgeous of the ones that I have seen yet, is this cathedral here.
That's the cathedral. It's downtown, but it's a remnant. It's not questable, but there's some stuff to do there.
There were definitely some questions in the Twitch chat on this one asking if you could completely rebuild this. Ernon explained that all the blocks here are player usable, so absolutely yes, we should be able to rebuild this. I assume we'll be seeing some church flippers in addition to the prior house flippers series. Joking aside, the detail on this one is just astounding. Next up on the level development team, we have Earl.
This is another remnant for the downtown area. Might look very familiar to some of you old-time players. It's kind of like a tall office building that's kind of been sliced diagonally.
Earl updated this with a number of the new blocks, but also tried to keep to the original feel of the building. Next, we have another downtown remnant.
So this is a similar remnant style in downtown. We tested these, so they're kind of like light on loot, but really good. Maybe temp board bases or temp places for a night.
It's interesting to see some of the destruction styles on these, how this one just basically has no roof on it whatsoever. You can definitely see that the creative team is taking some liberty to give us something new, something fresh. Next on the list, we are starting to actually flesh out some of the more rural areas in 7 Days to Die.
So this is a 2-building POI. Country town is kind of like your outskirt town, so it's not as built up as commercial or downtown.
I really like how they're starting to fill in all the shops and things. So you've got an appliance store here, you know, just more common things that are going to make the world feel more real. Next, we have another downtown filler.
So this is one of those combo buildings. It has some small shops on the first floor, and a pretty good sized living complex on top.
So listening to the dev stream, it was very interesting hearing them talk about level design, zombie placement, and flow through a building. Here's some of what Earl did to make this one a little bit more interesting. One
thing I did on the design of this POI is create multiple pathways that the player can go through, even though it's questable. It's not as linear as maybe some of the ones that you've seen in the past. I can certainly appreciate that approach because I know a lot of the POIs that you go through have a very distinct pattern that, you know, it kind of expects you to walk through. All right, let's circle back to just the last few of Eric's POIs. Eric was talking about how they've given a lot of facelifts. So this is the electric utility company, and this was the second POI that Eric ever developed after starting with the Fun Pimps. So again, he said he's left most of the structure intact, but he's gone through and added a lot of the new blocks to just give it a fresher look. Similarly, Eric has also taken the old refinery and given it a new look.
And that is not a POI I originally designed. I brought it up to date. Some people may recognize the building shape, which is also an older POI that has now gotten a little bit of polish on it.
Next, Eric took us back to the rural districts to take a look at the new farms. I feel like these are laid out in a more organic feel, much more common to what you would actually see in a farm, where you have the barn set up and the house and the living quarters. Just looks much better than anything that we've seen in the past. And finally, to wrap the POIs up, we end in a rural bakery.
So this was kind of sort of a sleazy country strip club. And, you know, you gotta add a little bit of a little bit of flavor, a little bit of sleazy flavor.
So that's going to wrap for all the POIs that they covered in dev stream number 2. So the last thing we're going to talk about is the massive shift to block access. To make it easier to learn the new blocks, they've actually added a prefab in here called AAA block shapes that you can go through and see every single block in the game all laid out. But I'm going to pivot over here and let Alan kind of give us a quick explanation of how the new block structure functions.
This is the screen that the player will see, and you can tell that it's laid out almost like the creative menu, but this is for the shapes only. And what you'll do is you'll collect wood, you'll craft a frame shape, and then with that variable helper block that's in your toolbar, you can then select any shape in the game. The frame shapes are a little different than the frames that you're used to. They're no longer a see-through like 2x4 style frame. They're more of a box style frame, and those will then be placed. You can kind of lay out your base, you can pick them up, put them back down, change the shape of them if you want, and then you can finally upgrade them to wood, cobble, and so on.
So that is how the new blocks will function. Lathan spent a while going through this massive field of shapes. I can only imagine what the community is going to come up with once they get their hands on this. So those are my rapid highlights for DevStream 2. If you get a chance, go check out the full stream. There was some really good stuff in it. And if you found this helpful, please drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next Thursday for the following dev stream. Eko out.